the Cafe Kubal Studios, hanging out with you where sports meets that thing called life. Once again, wake up call with Dan Tortora from here inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. Cafe Kubal here with you and here every single Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Cafe Kubal hanging out with you 7 days a week. You can head off to Cafe Kubal today by going to the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners to their drive-through location. You can also find Cafe Kubal by bringing yourself over to 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York. And, of course, you can find them on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, and 401 South Salina Street, which are all right there for you in Syracuse once again. And, of course, for Papa Joe and everybody around the country, all you have to do is go to cafekubal.com. That's cafe, Kubal.com, and you'll be able to find them there, and you can have the coffee sent over to you. So, as well as many awesome treats and their apparel and all they have to offer you. I actually have a refillable thermos that will obviously keep the cold cold and the hot hot. I have one of those from Cafe Kubal, so you can pick one up for yourself today as well by going to any one of their locations, as well as by going to cafekubal.com. So, here inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, you know that every Thursday we're hanging out with PJ. PJ, that's what we do here. Papa Joe here in hour number one in his normal slot, and always happy to have Papa Joe with us where sports meets that thing called life, as PJ will join me today to speak on college football realignment, college realignment, I should say, in general. I mean, football is obviously ruling the day, but seeing the college football realignment world that we're living in today, I'll give some background history on college football realignment so that you can actually learn what's happened over the years. You know that it wasn't just the last decade that we've seen all these shifting of the tectonic plates, so to speak, but this has actually been happening for a long time. And then PJ will also bring us into the baseball world as Major League Baseball is moving quicker and quicker toward their break. The All-Star break coming up, first half of the season, winding down. So we'll talk with PJ about what that means. And Max Scherzer found his way back to the mound and had himself a nice day when he came back to the mound for the first time since, I believe, May 18th. And then we also had the opportunity to see Shohei Ohtani show out yesterday and do his thing. So we'll talk about baseball in a little bit as well with Papa Joe. And then after that, we'll jump into hour number two where we have the opportunity to sit down once again. I can't believe I had the honor once, and even more so appreciate the fact that I'm now getting the honor twice to speak with Walt the Wizard Williams. Walt the Wizard Williams is going to be joining us here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time to speak on the NBA then and now. How has the NBA and basketball changed from when he was playing? We'll talk about him lasting over a decade in the NBA and what he can say about spending over 10 years playing professional basketball here in America. We'll also talk about the fact that he played for my Raptors. And, of course, we'll jump into NBA free agency and his thoughts, as well as his take on the names of today: Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and so on and so forth. And we're doing all of that with my Witty Wicks candle right here in my studio, smelling oh so sweet. I got windows wide open. You can get your candle today at Witty Wicks, so make sure you go out there. So with that being said, it is my honor and my privilege, as always, to bring the man of the hour into the show every single Thursday. And he got to start off the week with me yesterday. It was one of our most watched episodes that we've ever done together, and very happy to be able to tell him that this morning. And that is PJ. PJ, Papa Joe, how are we doing today?
Good morning, Dale. Yeah, we had fun last Monday. That was really fun.
Yeah, we had a good time, and like I said, it was one of the most viewed episodes that we've ever done. So congratulations, and thanks to you for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Once we get to talking, though, it's hard to stop us.
It is, and we've had a lot of great things to talk about, and we actually gave you extra time last week, so happy to do that. We typically do that, and on Wake Up Call, I'm all about under promise, over deliver, and PJ and I were talking off the air a little bit, so we thank you for your patience here, but now we're talking on the air. And Papa Joe, college football realignment, I know, you always talk about the SEC. We know that Oklahoma and Texas will be going to the SEC And we thought, okay, well, that obviously caused the domino effect. The Big 12 had to stay alive. They're losing their top two schools. So how do they stay alive? Well, they poached from the American Athletic. And when they did that, they took from Mike Oresco and the gang that I know very well, and they went out to the American, and they took Central Florida from Orlando. They also took Cincinnati, who just went to the college football playoff, and they took Houston. Three teams I've spent a lot of time with over, the majority of this past decade. And then they took BYU in all sports, taking them out of the West Coast Conference and taking their football independent and giving their football a home in a conference so that they don't have to be independent anymore. So that's the situation that happened there. Then the American responded by going out there and taking 6 schools from Conference USA, Rice, so that they could still have a team inside of Houston. They took UNC Charlotte, UTSA, which is a strong program in Division I FBS right now when it comes to football. UAB, another strong program when it comes to football, and done some good things in basketball recently too. And then they also took North Texas and FAU, and FAU obviously playing in the state of Florida Atlantic, and looking for themselves to kind of grow. And UCF came into the American when they were, a young offspring, so to speak, right? They hadn't done a ton nationally, as especially in football. And so within the American, they had the most success that they've ever had. They deserve to be in the college football playoff, but they at least got to play in some New Year's Six bowls and obviously showed out and did a lot of good things, even when they lost to LSU by 8, to see how well they played in that game. So, looking back on this, realignment has caused, like Oklahoma and Texas, caused everything to happen, like I said, with the Big 12, then with the American, then with Conference USA. Then Conference USA had to reload. The Sun Belt had to move. So many things have happened in just Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC. Now, fast forward a little bit here in 2022, and nobody could have anticipated. I mean, I talked about what I could see coming and what I thought would happen, but I did not see USC and UCLA leaving the West Coast to join the Big Ten. And now that has put the Big 12 in a position to attack the Pac-12 and potentially kill the Pac-12. And now the Americans got to look at it. The Atlantic Coast Conference, the ACC, has to look at it. And, of course, now we're all talking about Notre Dame and what's going to happen with Notre Dame. So, PJ, in a week's time, you and I, not even a week, we have a lot to discuss. What are your thoughts on the fact that college athletics is now going to look vastly different, and the Big 12 is maybe going to eat the Pac-12? California teams are playing in the Midwest. What are your thoughts?
It's tough to figure out. I know that the almighty dollar puts everything in perspective, so I'm assuming that's where they're doing it. But just a comment before we start talking about that. I bet Lincoln Riley's not too happy about taking his job at USC now, since he's got to come over and play Ohio State and all these guys.
Yeah.
So, maybe he's puckering up a little bit today. But, I can see, I don't know if UCLA, well, first of all, USC and UCLA can't afford to fly 1,500 miles to play football. Let's, probably have their own plane. Certainly not, they're not a small school and they have a big budget. So, it's not surprising. It's unexpected, but it's not surprising. So, you go where the money is. And they're not going to come to the SEC because the SEC's already snagged Texas and Oklahoma to start the 25 season. And UCLA and USC are going to start the 24 season, so they have a one-up at them. I guess there's a huge football contract with the television stations to do this. These guys make so much money. The conferences make so much. The SEC especially. I mean, how can you stop this parade of teams that are going where they want to make some money? I mean, USC and UCLA have pretty big budgets as it is, and now they're going to increase the revenue base by simply, flying 1,500 miles to play football and basketball, whatever. I don't know if it's going to work, but I think that some of the teams that were left over from the Pac-12, I think, are a little pissed off about that. Specifically, Oregon and Washington State. Those are really good football teams, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try to go too. But I think the Big Ten, or used to be called the Big Ten, is not going to be big anymore. It's going to be huge. with the addition of USC and UCLA. So, you know what bothers me about this whole thing is we haven't heard anything from the ACC yet. Now, the ACC, for several years, has always talked to the SEC about doing something with it. It boggles my mind why the SEC has not grabbed Clemson, FSU, Miami, or NC State or whatever, you know, why they haven't snagged them yet. Instead, they go, 1,000 miles to their left, they get Texas, and then they bring in Oklahoma, and get Clemson and FSU sitting right there in your backyard. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if the SEC snags these teams. What used to be an 8-team league is a 10-team league, is a 12-team league, is a 14-league team.
Yeah.
Pretty soon we're going to be up to 16 or 18 leagues or teams. We're going to have two separate leagues. The teams will never play outside their leagues because they can't afford to. There's too much money to be made. So I wouldn't be surprised if Clemson, FSU, Miami, or so on wind up with the SEC. I remember years ago, the SEC tried to snag Bobby Bowden in FSU. Bobby wasn't going to go for that. The reason, because he couldn't beat the SEC teams. On occasion, he would beat them and maybe beat them in a bowl game, but he didn't want to play. He didn't want to knock heads with these guys every single week. Now, Clemson and Miami, they'd love to do that. Miami is looking forward to a really good recruiting class down there for Cristobal. So what bothers me is there's some remaining teams that are out in the right field. And I specifically mean some of the teams from the Pac-12. I noticed that I was reading an article yesterday that there's 5 different points that can be said about what's happening. The first point is Big 12 to absorb the remaining Pac-12 teams, which, makes a little bit of sense. Well, the Big 12 used to be, Texas and Oklahoma and those guys. So, if they want to absorb the other Pac-12 teams, that would be okay. I don't think Oregon and Washington would mind doing that. The second point is the leagues now, the impending leagues, are waiting on Notre Dame. Why? I don't know. Notre Dame, for years, has been pursued to join a conference. They don't want to do that because they can't beat conferences. Then they wind up with a great TV package. They're by themselves. They make a lot of money. They still in a 1, 2, 3 in recruiting every year. They don't win enough, but, that's the way they do business, I guess. I guess if you were to say they're waiting on that at Notre Dame, perhaps that's true. Maybe Notre Dame would join what used to be the Big Ten. I don't know about that. I know they don't want to come to the SEC, that's for sure. In saying that, you've got the remaining teams in the Pac-12 that are sitting in limbo here. I think there's too much silence from them. I think maybe they need to move quickly here and tie up something. If the Midwest wants to bring in the West Coast team to fill it, that's fine. If Oklahoma and Texas are leaving, there's no trust anymore in these things. They all go for the dollar. Next, we talk about why the ACC is untouched. I just spoke about that with the best teams. The ACC is really going to be a hurting gator here, Daniel, because these other 2 leagues that we're talking about are going to become so big and so strong that the ACC is going to be left on the sideline, and with that, you're going to be losing revenue because the cable stations or the ESPNs and whatnot are not going to want to buy the package, And now Clemson, FSU, and Miami are going to be out in right field, like I said. I don't like that. I think the ACC is a good conference. They got some good teams. Maybe not up to the power of the SEC or the Big 12 now, but I think they need to. I think they need to be. I think they need to do something, and I think they need to do it quick.
Yeah.
In saying that, based on what the SEC done, now they're too quiet. Now, if the SEC wants to continue to beat these leagues up and continue to rule college football, they've got to do something here. The Big Ten has forced them to make a move. They've already made one move with Oklahoma and Texas, but that doesn't start till 25. So you got a couple years in limbo there. I think that the SEC is going to make a move, and if first thing they should do is add Clemson or FSU or Miami or whatever. But, now you got your leagues are so big. You're going to have 16, 18 teams. How do you figure these things out? You got a scheduling nightmare, and the teams, they won't be able to play their cupcakes anymore because there's not going to be any rule on a schedule for cupcakes. So those 5 points, I think, need to be talked about, and they probably will over the course of the next week or so. But I'm really looking forward to the SEC doing something, not sitting on their ass.
Yeah, and that's where we are right now, and that's you brought up a lot of great points, a lot of things that I've been talking about here on the show for those of you that have been chronicling, obviously the conference realignment conversation that we've been having here, and I appreciate you listening and watching every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, be it on YouTube, Facebook, or mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, and of course on wakeupcalldt.com and on facebook.com/livenowdt. We are here with Papa Joe inside the Cafe Kubal studio speaking on realignment. Greg says hi from Hershey Park, and Mr. Eckert, I appreciate some Hershey Park. I love Hershey Park. I haven't been there in a minute, so please enjoy some Hershey, some good old Hershey chocolate on us. Enjoy that for us, I should say. And so enjoy some Hershey chocolate for us, and definitely enjoy those rides, because there's some good rides out there from what I remember. So enjoy Hershey Park. My man Brandon might be out there doing his thing with his family. I think he was just out there recently. But getting back to realignment, PJ, you brought up something that I've been saying, right? The SEC made a move. They're going to have 16. And after them making the move to have 16, now the Big Ten's going to have 16, and at least, and then the Big 12, ironically, didn't have 12. They had 10, then they had 8. Now they have 12 with taking UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati from the American, and taking BYU, who is independent in football and from the West Coast Conference and everything else. So now the thing is, where do we go from here? Well, if the Pac-12 is dying, the Big 12 is reborn, the Big 10 is okay, and the SEC is okay. Well, the only conference that has stayed quiet, stayed mum, hasn't done anything, hasn't made any moves, is the ACC. And so I've made 2 propositions for the ACC. One of them is to go after, and this is something I said to do months ago when I thought the Big 12 was going to die. I said, if you're going to kill the Big 12, this is how you do it. And it's funny, because I had the Pac-12 taking from the Big 12, taking Kansas, taking Kansas State, taking some other pieces of them, Oklahoma State, and then I had the American going after the Texas schools because they're down in Texas now, and their headquarters in Irving, and they already have SMU, and so I had them taking Baylor, Texas Tech, and taking those pieces of TCU out of the Big 12, going to the American. And then I had the ACC taking West Virginia, and then the ACC to even themselves out, taking Maryland from the Big Ten. The ACC, in my opinion, right now, and I put up a ton of polls, and we're going to get into that because you can still vote in them on Twitter at CallDT. That's CALLDT. Follow me on Twitter and make sure you vote in the polls, because these things are up right now, and I love to get everybody's thought here and get as many votes in as we can to get a real feel for it. But taking a look at my suggestion months ago, when I talked about the Big 12 potentially dying, this was last year, and when I spoke about it, I said the ACC needs to take Maryland back from the Big Ten, because Maryland has no play in the Big Ten for basketball, no play in the Big Ten for football. They're irrelevant in football, and they still have rivalries. When you take them, if you take them back and you put them up against Duke, and then you have Syracuse regionally and BC and Pitt and whatnot, it made too much sense. And then West Virginia in the Big 12, they left the Big East to jump into the Big 12 because they saw that the Big East was potentially dying in football, and they were right. But now West Virginia, who are the rivals, right? Syracuse, Pitt, all of those rivalries make sense. They don't have any true rivalries in the Big 12, especially in the new Big 12, and they didn't have it in the old Big 12. And in the new Big 12, maybe it's Cincinnati because of proximity, but that's it. So West Virginia and Maryland would make perfect sense to go to the ACC in all sports, Now all of a sudden the ACC has 16, the Big Ten has 16, the SEC has 16. It puts the ACC back in the news. But what the ACC needs to do more than anything else right now is they have been the only school, or pardon me, the only institution. So they have been the only conference that has put themselves in a situation where they have had Notre Dame play within their football conference. Notre Dame has been independent forever and a day, but back in 2020, Notre Dame agreed, due to the bubble and due to the situation and due to how things had to work out and the different rules the NCAA made for that year, which I truly believe ended up being a test. I think 2020 was a lot of things, and I think that it was a place for college football to test a lot of things that they were planning on doing. And when Notre Dame joined the ACC dissolved divisions. Now the ACC, as of next year, is dissolving divisions starting in 2023. So that's enticing because Notre Dame's already done it. It's enticing because Notre Dame's already played in the ACC. It's enticing because Notre Dame's other sports are in the ACC. But when you look at geography and you look at the team makeup itself, it makes more sense for Notre Dame to be there in the Big Ten because of Indiana, and they're right in the center smack dab of it all. You got the Indiana Hoosiers there, but South Bend is right there in the middle of the footprint of the Big Ten, which has extended itself out to California now. But in that Midwest region, Notre Dame makes sense. And here's my thing about the ACC. If they don't add a school, if they don't make a move, if they don't expand their conference, they are going to be perceived as weak. They're going to be perceived as a non-enticing conference to go to, because all of the other quote-unquote power conferences are expanding, and in the case of the Pac-12, it's dying. The worst action right now in realignment is inaction, and the fact that the ACC has not made a move for West Virginia, who makes sense and would take from the Big 12. So now with the Big 12 being adding, now you can take from them. And the Big Ten getting to 16, now you can take Maryland back. You're not going to be crippling either conference. They probably wouldn't care that much if Maryland left the Big Ten. They might care a little bit more if West Virginia left the Big 12. But ultimately, those aren't going to hurt them. And it's going to help the ACC, and it's going to put the ACC in the news. Because right now, the ACC doing nothing is surprising. And if they better be talking to Notre Dame, they better be talking to West Virginia, they better be talking to Maryland. And I got to go down to ACC kickoff on July 20th and 21st, and they better have made a decision by then, or they might be in some trouble.
I agree. You know, you had a couple of days ago, you had a map on your program, and you're drawing little circles here and there. It used to be, these conferences used to be regional. And if you look at the SEC, it's really located in the South. I mean, let's face it. I mean, if they were to add Clemson or FSU or Miami, those teams remain in the South, and you got a nice little league right there.
Yeah.
But now the other leagues are not doing. The Big 12 is not staying central anymore. They're going to bring in the West Coast, and then the West Coast teams are going to go to the old Oklahoma Texas League. So nothing's going to be regionally more except maybe the ACC to some extent, and the SEC all the way. I don't know if the SEC will expand. I do know they need to do something. They need to make an announcement of something, and they need to do it quickly because, as you say, they got some youth conferences coming up, and the kids are getting ready to go maybe go into summer school and take some early classes. I like the idea of the SEC expanding to maybe West Virginia or something like that. Maryland is sort of like in the South. But the big caveat here, the big carrot out here is Notre Dame. Yeah. And Notre Dame is not going to do anything, Daniel. They're going to sit there. They're going to be pompous as they usually are. And they're going to sit there and they think they're going to get people bidding at them. Well, look at you got the SEC, powerful conference. Now you got the Big Ten looking to be quasi-powerful, and you got Notre Dame coming out. You know, Notre Dame is going to be Notre Dame. We know that. And if they don't say anything, it's like, oh well, they're Notre Dame. We don't care. They do their own thing. They got their own television contract. They got their own revenue source. Well, when you start putting these numbers together and you start bringing these teams in across the world, you're going to see the revenue stream increase for all these leagues. Now, I love it. I love when Oklahoma and Texas come to the ACC or the SEC. I think that's giant. I think that's just going to make the league almost unbeatable for the rest of the country. And Notre Dame, the Big Ten is trying to keep up. I mean, I don't know that they can keep up, but they've got a pretty good head start with USC and UCLA. So I think things are shaking out a little bit. I think there's probably some behind the scenes talk. No one's going to make anything public yet. I do like SEC making a move here, and of course, as you noticed, ACC needs to say something too. If the SEC poaches some teams from the ACC, then the ACC could be another minimal conference too. Because if you lose Clemson and FSU or Miami, you lose them out of that the ACC. You're watered down terribly, and then you probably won't even be competitive. But these teams want to make a move; they want to make money, Daniel. That's all it is money. They don't care if they got to travel 1,500 miles.
Well, and you know, and the thing is, and you bring up that point, and I said this too. You know, if Clemson, and I'm going to give you a little bit of history of realignment, and then I'll make my point about Clemson and going off of what you said. We're going to go back to 1971, and I'm going to give you a timeline of how realignment has changed collegiate athletics. Some of these moves people may not know. I know, you know, going back and looking at this, it's hard to believe some of these teams were in these conferences. Back in 1971, South Carolina left the ACC. In 1978, Arizona State joined the Pac-8 at the time. And it's funny how the Pac conference needs to just be called the Pac because they've been the 8, they've been the 10, they've been the 12, now they're the 10 again. They need to just stop putting a number on there. In 1983, really every conference needs to stop doing that. 1983, Georgia Tech joined the ACC. In 1991, the Big East formed a football league just a year after the Dome Open, the Dome Open 1980. But in 1991, the Big East formed a football league. And back in the day, they had Miami within that league. Remember that, folks. There's a lot of different things that were going on there. We saw what happened there when this happened. So, you know, the Big East power conference that had several members, Syracuse, Pitt, BC, and looking for a football landing spot. Then they added Miami, Rutgers, Temple, Virginia Tech, West Virginia as football-only members. And Miami came in as a full member. Then Rutgers, Temple, Virginia Tech, and West Virginia came in for football only. And then Rutgers and West Virginia joined as full members of the Big East in 1995. Notre Dame became a non-football member in the same season in 1995. And then Virginia Tech became a full member in 2000. And then eventually Virginia Tech, shortly after that, bolted for the ACC. So remember that. And it's crazy here. Miami won a national championship in the Big East first season. So there's something to be said about that. They won the 2001 national championship as well. So looking back at that, crazy. In their 13 seasons in the Big East, Miami won 9 conference championships. Then in 1992, Arkansas and South Carolina joined the SEC. And then we saw 1992, Florida State joined the ACC. 1993, Penn State decided to join the Big Ten. So going back to this, they were an independent football program. And Penn State was a big part of realignment back then in the early 90s. Think about that, which is crazy. 1993, the Penn State football joins the Big Ten there. And they joined the Big Ten in 1990, didn't begin playing the Big Ten until 1993, which is crazy. And it was the first time the Big Ten had added a school in 40 years, and it was an independent program. So just to give a little background there, if Notre Dame was to do it, in 1996, Texas, Texas A&M, Baylor, Texas Tech all took the Big 8 and created the Big 12, taking 4 teams from Texas there. And then we saw in 1999 the Mountain West split from the WAC, the Western Athletic Conference. And the Mountain West has something to play in this, and I did it in the map conversation. I shared that on our Facebook.com/WakeUpCallDT live feed. I would implore you to go back and watch my conference realignment map because it does paint the picture of everything while showing it to you. 2004, Miami and Virginia Tech joined the ACC. So like I said, after Virginia Tech became full members of the Big East in 2000, they were gone 4 years later. 2005, Boston College joined the ACC, leaving the Big East. In 2011, Nebraska joined the Big Ten, which made sense geographically, kind of, but made no sense in the fact that they're not relevant there. In 2011, Colorado and Utah joined the Pac-12. Made no sense for Colorado. They have no true rivalries, but it did make some sense for Utah, who's held their own against Oregon. Then in 2012, Texas A&M and Missouri joined the SEC. Texas A&M has made a splash. They hired Jimbo Fisher. Missouri has yet to show up in football there for the most part. In 2012, West Virginia and TCU joined the Big 12, which sparked the end of the Big East football, because in 2013 we saw Syracuse and Pittsburgh join the ACC as full members, Notre Dame as everything but football. 2013 we also saw the end of the Big East, like I said, the start of the American Athletic Conference, which will turn 10 next year. 2014, Louisville joined the ACC, and they also left the what was becoming the American Athletic. 2014, Maryland and Rutgers joined the Big Ten. So as Syracuse, Pitt, Notre Dame, and Louisville were coming in, Maryland was leaving. Rutgers was obviously looking for a home for themselves and decided not to stay in the American. And in 2020, as I mentioned before, Notre Dame joined the ACC as a football member for one season. In 2023, next year, we're going to see BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF join the Big 12. BCU going to have a home for its independent football for the first time here. In 2023, the American Athletic also will be bringing in those 6 Conference USA schools that I had mentioned before. 2024, UCLA and USC will join the Big Ten. And in 2025, if not 2024, Oklahoma and Texas will join the SEC. So the funny thing about this timeline of college realignment that has obviously a ton to do with football is that back in the 70s, we saw that domino, right? 1971, South Carolina leaves the ACC, and South Carolina would eventually become an SEC member. Well, now, fast forward to 2022, and almost 40 years later, and look at the irony of this. The Big Ten had not added anybody in 40 years, and they added Penn State that was independent football. Now we're looking at 40 years from when I started that realignment timeline in 71, and we could see Notre Dame leave independence and join the Big Ten in football. Also some irony, in 1971, South Carolina leaves the ACC. In 2022, we may hear that Clemson, the rival of South Carolina, is also leaving the ACC. And I think that is a very, very real thing that will kill ACC football.
Absolutely. I think ACC is on life support now as it is, because these conferences are going to be starting to, as I said earlier, poach some of these teams. And, of course, the 3 big ones from the ACC are Clemson, FSU, and Miami.
Yeah.
And again, regionally, they'll fit right into the SEC. They don't have to travel a million miles. You know, even Maryland to some extent. Go back to your history lessons. It'd be interesting to see what happens. I want to see some movement. I want to see more dialogue because, again, this is a redundant statement, but it all comes down to revenue.
Yeah.
What type of TV contract is this league or the teams going to get? As they said earlier, Notre Dame has their own TV contract, but if they join, they may not be able to make enough money if they join a league. They're still going to be out in the cold. I can see Clemson and FSU and Miami playing for the SEC. Love to see some rivalries like, say, Florida and Clemson or FSU and Auburn or something like that. You know, these great rivalries, great teams. I mean, you could conceivably win your conference and lose a couple of games. That's just some really tough customers. You know, this is going to put – we know that the best conference in college football is the SEC. It's been that way for several years. The Big Ten is starting to make a move. They want to make a statement. They says, okay, you added two teams. We're going to add 2 teams, and we're going to do it a year before you want to do it. Okay, all right, we'll do that. So now the SEC's like, all these guys, let's go back and forth here. Well, let's try to add a couple more teams. You know, you can do it, but you know, you're not going to be able to play anyone outside your conference if there's 16 teams in the league. You know, you got to wind up playing your leagues all the time. You don't have any rivalries outside of football, outside the region.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen. is I think the SEC is going to form its own. And I said this before, and I said it before any of this stuff happened. I believe I mean, with the SEC adding Oklahoma and Texas, I had this conversation, and after you and I talked on Monday down in the great state of Florida together in the same room, PJ, that Friday I talked to Joe Fields from Texas A&M and spoke on the SEC already being an autonomy conference, already being autonomous, already being self-governing within that, 5 conferences, and the fact that I believe that the joint alliance of the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the ACC, we formed this alliance because we wanted to share information. We formed this alliance so we could schedule things. You can schedule and share information without forming an alliance. You formed an alliance and you did it immediately after Oklahoma and Texas announced they're joining the SEC. So what you essentially did is you said, oh my God, we got to figure out a way to stay together when the SEC breaks away. I said the SEC was going to break away. And if and when they get Clemson and or Florida State, Miami, the SEC is going to form their own conference. They already are going to have half of the number that the NFL has. They're going to have 16. The NFL has 32. They're going to form their own division or whatever you want to call it. And like you said, they have 16 teams. How are you going to play everybody? They're going to have their own postseason, and the SEC is going to play for what they consider to be a national championship. The SEC, in my opinion, will break away, will form its own, and will be its own league outside of the NCAA.
Boy, that's big. That's really big. That's a good analogy, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happens, too. Imagine that. The SEC got their own league outside of the NCAA, and they got their own television contract, and all the teams are making a lot of money. Even the teams that don't win a lot, the SEC are still making money because of the TV contracts. I like that, and I can see the SEC doing that. I'm not sure the powers to be are going to be happy with them trying to break away from the NCAA, but what the hell? I mean, the NCAA doesn't do anything as it is. I mean, they don't enforce the rules the way they're supposed to. They don't write enough rules. Let's put it that way. And I would love to see Nick Saban knock heads with some of these other guys. But we talked about scheduling, and if you schedule 11 or 12 games a year, and you wind up almost have to be playing all of your teams in your league, at least in your conference, that's fine. I mean, you can have rivalries every year, and the teams are still going to make money. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of days. Maybe there's some things going on right now as we speak.
Yeah.
The one that's really is it's really under the gun here is the ACC, and they have to do something. I know you're a big fan of the AAC, and you should be because there's some good teams coming out of there. But I can see a lot of the minor league teams, as we call them, sticking with the AAC or maybe joining them because they can't get with the big league. So the ACC, as we know it, they may become extinct if they keep being aggressively pursued by these other leagues.
Well, and I said it, the irony of the ACC is that half of the ACC are former Big Ten or former Big East schools. So the irony of, if you look at ACC basketball, there's 15 schools, 7 of them are former Big East schools, and then 8 of them aren't. So half of the ACC came from the Big East, which decided to go basketball-centric and get rid of football and then have their other sports. And I said, if the ACC loses Clemson and loses any more, they could turn around with Duke and North Carolina and Syracuse and them and say, okay, you know what? You guys got to find homes for your football teams, and we're going to become basketball-centric because that's where we're going to make our money, like the Big East is doing. Then they'll try and rival the Big East. And some people might say, well, Dan, you're crazy. Well, back then the Big East did it. Back then the Big East said, hey, guess what? We're not doing this anymore. Now the Big East did it because their Catholic 7 schools either don't have football, or they have Division II football, or they have Division I AA, or whatever it may be. Their football teams were not playing on the FBS level. So it made sense for them to make that move. But the Atlantic Coast Conference has no choice, in my opinion, but to make a move. When the SEC attacked the Big 12, they didn't attack the Big 12. They attacked the Big 12's top two teams. They attacked the identifying teams of the Big 12. When the Big 10 attacked the Pac-12, they didn't attack the Pac-12. They attacked the Pac-12's top two teams and their identifiers besides Oregon, but historically UCLA and USC. So you look at Big Ten's not just realigning, they took the identity of the Pac-12. The SEC took the identity of the Big 12. The ACC isn't going to be able to take the identity of any of these conferences unless they make a giant play for Oregon and Washington, but who in their right mind on the Atlantic coast is going to want to travel? Why would Syracuse want to go all the way to Oregon to play a game? So, but the way that we look at this right now is that you have to look at the fact that the SEC and the Big Ten didn't just make a statement, they ripped the head off the other conference. And now the ACC has to make a move. But when they take West Virginia or Maryland, for instance, they're not ripping the head off anybody. They're ripping off like the pinky toe, not even the pinky toe. They're like ripping off one of the middle toes that you can still walk without. Because West Virginia leaving the Big 12 isn't going to hurt the Big 12 that much. And Maryland leaving the Big 10, I don't even know if the Big 10 would notice. So the reality of it all is the moves that were made by the SEC and the Big 10, they were huge. Now the ACC is going to make lesser moves, but they have to make them now. And the only big move that the ACC can make currently in this moment is to do whatever they have to do to get Notre Dame to come as a full member. Because if they lose Notre Dame to the Big Ten, that means they're losing all of Notre Dame sports, Notre Dame basketball, after sharing all of that money in all other sports outside of football with Notre Dame, giving Notre Dame a platform for all their sports besides football. So that's like bringing a girl out to dinner 20 times and she ends up kissing somebody else. You're going to do this and put yourself in this situation. If the ACC loses Notre Dame and they go as a full member to the Big Ten, all you did was waste money, time, and energy on them, and then they went and dated the guy across the street and they're making out with him right in front of you. The ACC has no other play but to do everything in their power to take Notre Dame. I don't think it's going to work. I think I think honestly Notre Dame is going to go to the Big Ten, but if anything happens. But the reality of it all right now is that the only moves the ACC can make are not even big moves. They're moves to take something to show that they have some power, but the SEC and the Big Ten moves were cutting the heads off of conferences. The SEC almost killed the Big 12, and the Big 12 is killing the Pac-12 right now. So, yes, the ACC has to make a move, but there's no move that they can make right now outside of Notre Dame that's going to be any much of a big splash. It's going to be a little drip in a puddle. That's it.
That's true. You brought up an interesting point about basketball. I know that the ACC has a great basketball league. But, that's not where they make their money. They make the money on football. So if these teams merge the way they're supposed to, it's just going to be a sidelight that the basketball conferences, the basketball teams are going to be great to play against and great to watch. I mean, I don't mind watching basketball like that. But you got to remember that they make their money on football. And whatever Notre Dame does is going to make the other conferences sit up. Now, the only way that Notre Dame can get out of this deal is to join the Big Ten. I agree with you there. But they have to, get another team to make it even. But the SEC doesn't care about that. I mean, if Notre Dame, they're not even in a region. At least SEC is keeping it regional. Pretty soon, Daniel, these Jets are going to be flying all over the country, and the small teams can't afford to do that. The teams that don't win and are just hanging by a thread and really graciously getting money from the TV contracts from the big teams that win, they're just hanging by a thread. Now, I'm not going to your AAC is not going to attach some teams that they have to fly around the world to. And the Pac-10, those teams are really under fire. I think Oregon and Washington, I think that's a great catch for someone. Maybe the Pac-10 or whatever they call themselves now will come up with something that resembles the old Pac-10. But losing the big two teams like that is huge. USC is not a big basketball school, UCLA, that's for sure. So it'll be interesting to watch. I'm sure there's going to be news coming down this week that we'll be able to talk about next week, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think with in what we were talking about, to go back to the SEC for a second here, the SEC, remember when Corona started and conferences said, we're not going to play these rivalry games we played forever, right? We're not going to play Florida State. We're not going to play South Carolina and Clemson. Well, if Florida State joined the SEC, their rival Florida is there. If Clemson joins the SEC, their rival South Carolina is there. And you talk about region and how I did the map and how the SEC has stayed in the South, and they've extended out to like the mid South of the country, but they have the Southeast. And you look at what they've done and how they've stayed in that area. Well, I also made mention of the fact that the Sun Belt and the American Athletic, who now both will have 14 institutions as full-time members, the Sun Belt and the American are in almost the exact same area as the SEC. So they're taken from the SEC and saying, okay, these are the fertile areas. This is the fertile ground. Let's do that, right? Let's take a page out of the most successful conference, and let's look to take schools in these areas. In the Carolinas, in Florida, in Georgia, in Oklahoma, in Texas, in Louisiana, in Alabama. I mean, you look at what the American Athletic has done. They have multiple teams in Texas. They have 4 teams in Texas. So just like the Big 12, they have 4 teams in Texas. And they now, looking at the American Athletic, they're now in Alabama with UAB. They're in North Carolina in 2 places with UNC Charlotte and East Carolina. So you start to, and then now they're back in Florida with FAU, and they still have South Florida. So you're in a different part of Florida now, and so you have South and North Florida still. So after losing Mid Florida. So, to me, the American Athletic and the Sun Belt, looking at the fact that they both have 14, that's another thing to look at, it, that they're following that geography of the SEC. And Mike Oresco told me of the American Athletic, their commissioner, he said, we ballooned to 14 in case realignment happened again, so that if we lost teams, we could still survive. And he said that they could have added more. And so I pay attention to all those words that he said. I also pay attention to the fact that people are now starting to mention the Mountain West. And I saw last night, well, the Pac-12 could only stay alive if they merge with the Mountain West. I said that in the conference realignment map conversation at the beginning of the week. I've already said that. I mentioned the Mountain West and how geographically it makes perfect sense, because with all these conferences realigning outside of USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten, everybody's leaving the western part of the country wide open. People are taking from the north. They're taking from, the ACC is pretty much on the coast. Then the Big Ten is up in the Midwest and then in California. And then we see 3 conferences settling in the South with the AAC, the Sun Belt, and the SEC. And then the Big 12 is kind of making this U shape in the bottom of the country. So they have the Midwest, and then they're stretching out a little bit. But the Mountain West Conference, if they want to stay alive and stay strong in this and, kind of put up their dukes against the Sun Belt and the American, it would behoove them to take whatever teams from the Pac-12 that the Big 12 doesn't want. And then they can merge them together, because they still have Boise State. They still have the Smurf turf. So there's something to be said about the Mountain West there, and I'm happy that somebody else saw that and mentioned that yesterday, because that's a domino that I think could fall. But I mean, this is a really interesting situation, PJ, and I got to be honest with you, I would be surprised if Clemson, Florida State, and Miami don't heavily consider moving. Even North Carolina doesn't heavily consider. I know North Carolina has Duke with that, but Duke football is a non-factor, and North Carolina football has become a factor in the second emergence of Mac Brown. So, I mean, ultimately, I would be stunned if Clemson doesn't make a move to join the SEC, because if the SEC gets Clemson, it's game over, because that means that they would have 3 of the 4 spots in the college football playoff. It's Alabama, another SEC school that rotates, Clemson, and then usually a Big Ten school. If Clemson goes to the SEC, then and Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten, then there's two conferences, and those conferences can play their own leagues and then play a mega championship of their top team against their top Big Ten against the top SEC or however they want to do it. But in my opinion, right now, Clemson is a huge factor. They're better in basketball, but they're great in football. And if they go to the SEC, which makes geographical sense, it makes rivalry sense. Florida State makes rivalry sense, makes geographical sense. If they make these moves and this ends up happening, PJ, then it's over. I mean, the SEC arguably is the best, even with the Big Ten making additions. If you get Clemson, which makes a lot of sense right now, the ACC has no other move to make but to beg Oregon and Washington to travel across the country and get jet lag just to play a football game.
Well, the national championship series will wind up being between the Big Ten and the SEC if that happens, which is essentially that's what
that's what it is.
What happens anyway.
Yeah.
So the other teams are just not going to be they're not going to be relevant. I mean, the ACC is probably just going to go by the wayside. They'll pick up some minor league teams and try to hold the league together, but I think we're going to see some good news coming out of the talks. I'm sure the airwaves are burning up, so let's see what happens.
Yeah, and I'll let everybody know at the end of the show how the polls are going as well. We're going to take a quick step aside because we have a few more minutes with PJ before we get to Walt the Wizard Williams, who will shift gears to basketball for us. And so we'll take a fast break here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. We'll come back with about 10 minutes for PJ to give us his thoughts on the baseball world as we get closer to the All-Star break. Here inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, you are watching and listening to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Kubal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafekubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Kubal needs. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
Welcome back here inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. This is Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and you're hanging out with me where sports meets that thing called life. Cafe Kubal, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, as well as on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners. So make sure you head out there to North Syracuse at their drive-through location. Big love and much respect to Cafe Cabal. I was out there yesterday at Salina. And I want to let you all know, if you like the digs of the studio here, we've done a lot of work with the studio since the last time you have seen everything. And we have our 315 Home Sweet Home sign, and we have our Cuse Home Sweet Home pillow, our 315 pillow, and these beautiful Witty Wicks candles that are smelling oh so beautifully and keeping my allergies at bay right now, which I love more than anything. So make sure that you go to Witty Wicks in Township 5 in Camillus, New York, right in front of Movie Tavern. And of course, you can go to wittywicks.com. They're not just candles, they have a lot of stuff for you, and their candles alone will keep you coming back for more. So thank you for all that you do over the years, and much respect and much appreciation. And shout out to making my studio look even prettier. So I appreciate that very much. With that being said, Papa Joe and I are hanging out here for a few more minutes before Walt Williams comes on to the show. The Wizard will be with us momentarily, but PJ, we have an abridged version of baseball as we spent a lot of time on College Football Realignment, but what can you tell us about the world of baseball and just maybe some main topics and main pieces that are sticking out to you as we get closer to the All-Star break?
The leagues are shaping up now because the good teams are staying on top. In the American League, the Yankees are 59-23. They're playing at an unbelievable pace. They've outscored their runs. They've outscored their opponents by 175 runs scored and runs against. The last 10 games are 7-3. If they wind up 5-5 for the next 10 games and so on, they win their division easy. Tampa Bay and Boston are 14 games behind. The good thing about that is that the other leagues in the American League are so weak that perhaps Tampa Bay and Boston are going to get a wild card job. Minnesota is ruling the Central, barely 4.5 games over Cleveland. They're not setting anyone on fire. Chicago, Cleveland, and Minnesota are going to play for until they finally figure out who's going to win that conference. The Astros are leading Seattle, and my Angels are absolutely an abomination, Daniel. You talk about your Arizona team. My Angels are absolutely pitiful. I'm going to make a prediction here now, and I watched Houston play a couple times last week. I think that Houston is going to be the team to beat in the American League, and I have them as the favorite for the World Series. They're playing unbelievable ball. They've always had the hitters, even though they lost Tortora. They got 3 frontline pitchers that can go deep into games. I love them. The Angels are in that area too, but I watched the Angels. I did watch the Angels last night. I actually watched 2 games last night. The Yankees are beating up on Pittsburgh 16-0. Aaron Judge hit 1 million home runs, drove in 1 million runs. He's now leading the league in home runs and RBIs, and he's the leader for the MVP in this league. And I know that Ohtani is right there close. And the other game I watched was the Angels playing Miami, and Ohtani was pitching. The kid pitches 7 innings, gave up 2 hits, an unearned run, struck out 10, didn't even break a sweat, drove in 2 runs. Well, what more can you ask from the kid? I mean, he's a very good chance that he could get the MVP for the American League for the second time in his young career. So I look for the Aaron Judge and Ohtani to keep going. I mean, it's great to watch. And Trout is 1 for 21 over his last at bats. 1 for 21 with 13 strikeouts. Greg said it best a couple weeks ago. He said he went from 325 to 275 hitting. Now he's at around 250. Something's wrong. I think it's his eyes. I think he needs contacts or something. He's not seeing the ball. He's not picking it up. He drives in a run last night because some guy plunked him. The pitcher plunked him when the base was loaded, so he gets a run batted in. He didn't hit anything, Go to the National League. You got the Mets are running away with theirs. However, the Atlanta's staying close, only 2.5 games behind. Those 2 teams will be fighting for the pennant, of course. Love the pitching with the Mets. Scherzer's coming back. The Green's going to be coming back. Love it. Central League, the Brewers are hanging in there over the Cardinals by 3 games. The Brewers pitching. Their record's not that good, 47-37. Their pitching is just a disappointment this year, except for Hader. Watched the game the other night. It was against the Cubs. Back and forth game, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2. Hader has a chance to save the game. What does Chicago do? They scored an inside the park home run against Josh Hader. Unheard of. And he blows a save. However, his buds picked him up. They won 3-run homer in the bottom of the 11th inning. So Hader doesn't get the save, doesn't get the loss, but he got a blown save. So, he is hittable, but not very often. You got the West, the Dodgers are taking care of business over there. San Diego staying close, but this is the Dodgers to lose. This is their division. The Giants are there too, but the Dodgers look a little bit too strong. They got the best pitching. You got stats. The stats aren't going to change that much. You got Aaron Judge is taking over, certainly, but there is one surprise, and that's Tony Gonsolin. He's pitching lights out, and he's just absolutely unbelievable. He's so much better. I mean, the Dodgers have enough pitching as it is with Kershaw and Buehler. And this kid comes in with a 1.54 ERA. He's got 10 wins already. Dodgers would be very, very difficult to beat because they win on pitching and defense. So, that's it in a nutshell. And there's not really a lot to talk about because nothing really changes that much. All that changes is the people that are moving around, maybe trying to get the MVP for their leagues. And when you look at Ohtani on television, he is absolutely frightening. He is a big, tall, strong kid, throws 1,000,000 miles an hour, got a changeup, slider, drop ball, whatever you want to call it. Used to call it a splitter. He can get anyone out with any pitch. He's almost impossible to hit right now. He's in a pretty good role right now. In the last 4 games, he's only given up 1 earned run in the last 4 games. His ERA is something like 2.44 now. So if he keeps this up, he's very good chance that he'll get the MVP again. But forget about the Angels trying to make the playoffs. They're not going to do it. With Trotta's in the front, I don't know what's happening, but he better wake up. He's my hero.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens from here, and hopefully Chow can wake it on up and bring something to the table in the second half of baseball, and hopefully finish off the half strong. Ohtani looking very strong, but on a team that just can't seem to figure it out as a group, but individually, success. And usually that comes down to management, and they change their management, so we'll see where they go from here. As always, PJ, I appreciate it. College Football Realignment, a look at the history of college realignment in college athletics realignment, not just football, all the way back to 1971. So speaking with Papa Joe on 40 years of realignment, and of course the baseball season. As always, PJ, I appreciate you, and I look forward to talking with you soon. And some big news, and as God always seems to do it, I'm sure when I'm down in Charlotte for the ACC kickoff, there will be something big that has already happened or will happen while I'm down there, because that's just the cool life that I feel very proud to live. So I can't wait to find out what surprises are going to be there for me when I get to Charlotte.
Okay, bud. See you later.
All right, take care. That coming from Papa Joe here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. We'll take a quick step aside here inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. We'll come back with Walt the Wizard Williams to head to the hard court of basketball right after this.
Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday Monday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavocollis.com. That's myAVICOLLIS.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout Central and Upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York, located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway. PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. As a patient, what do we want? To be cared for, to be listened to, and to have someone walk us through the process on our path to victory. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics does all of those things beautifully, with Dr. Mark Petropoli leading the team on 791 West Genesee Street in Skaneateles, New York, located minutes from beautiful Skaneateles Lake. Whatever your injury may be from head to toe, preventative care, rehab, physical therapy, laser therapy, and surgery are all available at Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, where they care about us, they listen to us, and they understand that everyone's path to victory is a little bit different. Let them help you on yours by calling 315-685-7544 to make your appointment today. That's 315-685-7544. And find out more information at victorysportsmedicine.com.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. Cafe Kubal on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, and 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, New York. And of course, you can head out to 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, as well as to the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road to Sweetheart Corners in their drive-through location in North Syracuse, New York. So make sure you head out there today. I want to thank you so much for being a part of the show. And we thank Papa Joe for hour number 1, speaking on college realignment as well as Major League Baseball. And now we head from there to the hard court, as I have the opportunity to welcome back to the broadcast somebody that I met in my ACC travels back in one of the ACC tournaments that was in Greensboro, and that is Walt the Wizard Williams, somebody that I respected for a very long time growing up, continued to, and as a kid collected his cards. And I'm going to shamelessly plug my Toronto Raptors because I collected every Raptor player, and Walt the Wizard Williams was one of those players. So went from collecting his cards to meeting him at the buffet line in the ACC for the tournament, and now being able to welcome him back to the show is a true honor for me. So let's bring him in. Walt, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, man. hear that commentary right there on the Raptors, brother.
Yeah, man, and going back to listen, and I want this to be known because maybe you got some pull with this, but I said the Raptors, I became a fan in the beginning of the beginning when the logo came out in like 1994, and then the team started playing in 1995. I said back then, Damon Stoudemire, big fan, all that. I leaned on my team and said, I believe we'll win a championship. And then in 2019, they won a championship after me being a fan for, 24 years at the time. I still am waiting for my apology letters. I'm still waiting for my roses. I'm still waiting for my candy. So how much pull do you have right now that we can get out to the NBA world and I can get some apologies out there?
Absolutely none.
Okay. Fair enough.
I can tell you what, though, playing there in the early days, it was always great fan support. I remember the Indian guy with the turban, the umbrella, in the front row, and just the fan support. Herbie on the mic, the introductions and stuff, and so it was a fantastic environment to play in. The Skydome was a unique situation. They had to configure the stands because it was a football arena, and so it was just a great, unique experience that I'll always remember.
Yeah, and you got to play, speaking here with Walt the Wizard Williams on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Well, you got to play for over a decade in the NBA, and to play anywhere professionally is a huge accomplishment. To do it for over a decade is truly special. You came in '93, you played all the way through that 2003-04 season. What can you tell me about reflecting on the fact that you're one of the people in this world that can not only say that you played in the National Basketball Association, but that you were there for over a decade?
Oh man, it's an awesome experience. I actually was drafted in the 1992 draft with Big Shaq and Christian Leitner, guys like that. And so it's a great experience. I mean, actually going through it. It was just, okay, we just going to the next step. When I was in high school, going through the process of picking which school I wanted to go to, it wasn't this big thing to me that, I'm playing at a Division I school that's going to be on TV. It was just, Lynn Byers was a big influence on me, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps and come to the University of Maryland. So to me, that was just the next step. And then, working hard throughout those years and becoming a dominant player there, that was just the next step. And then, yes, we go to the NBA. That was just the next step. So for me, it wasn't this big pie in the sky that I was reaching for. It was just day-to-day grinding and working hard. And from that, this is the next thing that comes after that.
Yeah, and you had made mention, and my apologies on that, 1992 draft coming in, and so 92, 93, all the way through to 2002-03 there that you played inside of the NBA, and you started off with the Kings back in 1992-93, and I want to make mention of the fact of this. You played in 59 games as a rookie. You averaged 17 points per game. You had over 43% shooting percentage, field goal percentage overall. Just what you could say, like you said, the draft class that you came in on, all of those notable players and great players that have come in, for you to play as a rookie in the majority of those regular season games and to really get out there for the Kings and have an immediate impact. You played almost 30 minutes a game as a rookie. Just what you could say about that experience in your rookie season.
Well, I think just having experience in playing in the ACC, it was many times that, I would play against teams that had 4 or 5 pros on a team playing at the same time. And, like the environment now where there's a one and done or guys leaving in their sophomore year, that wasn't the environment then. So a team like a Duke, North Carolina, they'd be full of pro guys that were junior and senior experienced guys who were ready-made pros but were still playing in college, and so just playing in that environment consistently, I think it prepared me for the next level. And also, I can say in playing in Prince George's County and in the state of Maryland, I think Kevin Durant, he highlighted this area a little bit with a special that he did called In the Water. And it highlights this county right here. And, he's a modern day player that comes from this county, but this county has always been that way. It's always produced countless amount of athletes, pro athletes. And so I played in high school, I played against guys who were 6'8", 6'9", that were absolutely dominant on the post, but would shoot threes, handle the ball like a guard, and all of these things. So when I attended the University of Maryland and I was a point guard there, it was a seamless transition for me because I had come from a high school league and playing street ball where you wasn't pigeonholed to being on the block. You could do everything because the player you was playing against could do that. So I was lucky enough to be around a fantastic basketball at a young age, and it helped me propel myself to the next level, each time that I got to that point.
Speaking here with Walt the Wizard Williams on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Cubal studios. You bring up your time at Maryland, and, I asked you how you could be in the NBA for over a decade, and you talked about the level of competition you had in the ACC. Well, you know that Maryland, obviously, over the years here, has become a Big Ten school in all sports. We're going through this crazy realignment. I have said multiple times that Maryland should look to go back to the ACC, and the ACC needs to make some type of move right now because they're the only quote-unquote power conference that's sitting pat. And I think the worst action right now in college realignment is inaction. So they will have as many football schools as the American Athletic, 14, as many as the Sun Belt, who also has 14. The Big Ten's going to have 16. The SEC is going to have 16 at least. The Big 12 trying to get to probably 16, if not more. So, you being a former Maryland player and always part of the brotherhood of the Maryland Terrapins, should the Maryland situation move back to the ACC? Should the Terps take a look at going back to old rivalries, going to football there, being a little bit more viable, on the football side of things? As somebody who attended Maryland, what do you think about an ACC Maryland reunification?
It's certainly a different scenario than in the past. You just mentioned there's so many teams in the ACC. I remember in my day it was 9 teams. So, you were very familiar with the programs and you played each other consistently so many times, and that element is gone because there are so many teams. So I think the traditional aspect of the ACC, I don't think that you will be able to rekindle that because I don't think the consistency of playing certain teams will be there because of the amount of teams. So, it's difficult. I will admit that I still watch ACC basketball as well as Big Ten. It's just something that I'm used to and that I grew up with. So it's still a little bit of a unique situation or something to get used to when you're talking about the Terps being part of the Big Ten. So I can understand your perspective, but just like I said, I just think the traditional part of it has gone. So I think you got to look at other things. What's the benefit to the university and the programs and things of that nature?
Yeah, and obviously being a part of the Big Ten right now is huge. I got to ask you this, Walt, to talk about realignment here for a second, as we've done that throughout the week, and really we've talked about this for a while, and some of these chips that I saw falling and whatnot. What's your take on Notre Dame? Should they join the Big Ten as a total, complete school, full-time member, football as well with all their sports? They're in the ACC for everything but football. Do they join the Big Ten? What's your take on that, and how do you see that? And if Notre Dame joins the Big Ten, then is that the death of the ACC, so to speak?
Well, you know what? I'm not really that well versed in this part of things with Notre Dame, but from a general perspective, when I look at Notre Dame, it seems like they have always had their own, conference themselves. Play on TV so consistently, and so it seems like they kind of had their own following, regardless of if they're in a conference or not. So I don't know what happens to that if you now move yourself into say a Big Ten conference. I don't know what happens to that. So, it seems like right now they have their own single lane that they're in that no one else is in. And now you go into the Big Ten. Now you could possibly be lumped in with everybody else in the Big Ten. And there's some good schools in the Big Ten. And so, that's the way I see things. So I don't know if it'll be a benefit or what, but I know if that happens, I think the Big Ten, the ACC, the biggest thing that Notre Dame brings is football-wise. So I don't think the ACC ever benefited from that part of the equation. So, I think if Notre Dame leaves and go to the Big Ten, I don't know if necessarily that's the death of the ACC, because I think Notre Dame's strength is football and not basketball. So you'll be losing that basketball team, but I don't think that that's a bigger deal as opposed to if you were losing the football program.
That coming from Walt the Wizard Williams. Head back to the hard court. We talk about all these changes that have been happening when we speak on college football and realignment and how that's kind of running the show right now. But for you, the game itself, when we head back to the hard court of basketball, the NBA then and now, when you played comparative to you watching it now, where are the biggest differences in your mind, and does it make you laugh? Does it make you want to cry? I mean, how do you look at today's NBA compared to the NBA that you played in?
Well, I think the biggest difference is the physicality of the game, especially on a perimeter. I think around the basket is still physical, but you don't spend much time down there, so it's not as physical a game down there as well. But I think on the perimeter, they allowed us in the day to be a little bit more handsy, and you could touch guys a little bit more. So in that respect, you could always nullify guys who were more quicker or athletic than you are by putting hands on them or being a little bit more physical with them. And so it always reverted back to what's your skill level. Like, so in my day, you didn't see as many athletic guys flying around as you do now. And I think that that's a direct result of the lack of physicality that's on the perimeter. So now it gives way to guys who are quick and more athletic because you don't get touched as much on the perimeter. Me being an offensive player, I like to see the games. I like to see the scores at 100 and 110 to 104. I like to see those games. I think the Chicago Bulls, the way they play on the defensive end, they took advantage of the rules and were very physical in what they were doing out there in the basketball court. And as a result, you saw in the 80s and 70s a lot. And so I think the NBA took notice of that and eased up on rules, and you see a more offensive game now. And then I think the environment of all has changed to more of an outside-in game as opposed to inside-out in the 90s. And so now the court is spread open more, and then with that environment, you get a guy like Steph Curry that enters the league in that type of environment that just expands it even more. So I think the game has become more wide open. You use more of the floor. It's not as physical on the perimeter, so it makes for a more exciting game on the offensive end.
Yeah, and like you brought it up first and foremost, the physicality. I miss that. I miss seeing, and I can't tell you how many games I watch, and collegiately talking about that too, not just the NBA, that, you can't really block a shot as a big man because if the side of your pinky grazes their wrist for like a half a millisecond, it's like a flagrant foul. And it's just, to me, it's so stupid. And I got to ask you this, Walt, because back when you were playing, I didn't see it that much. I know big old Shaq tried to do it sometimes later on in his career and probably shook the arena. But flopping, can we please talk about this, like, guys throwing themselves across the court when somebody like taps them with their elbow, and just how, you talk about a lack of physicality in today's game, and to go with that lack of physicality, this theatrical, like Neo from the Matrix, guys flying backwards when they're barely touched. Just what your thoughts are on the flopping world that we live in, because we've seen LeBron do it. I mean, there's some big body guys that are out there that are acting like they're little feathers when they get tapped a little bit. What is your thought on the flopping world that we live in?
I think a few years back it was just at an all-time high. I think the league has done a decent job of, calling a foul on a flopping a foul, or letting things go a little bit more. So I don't think you see as much flopping as you did in the past. But I will tell you this: I didn't play against LeBron, but when I see him play, I can see resemblance of how things were when Shaq played. And so, Shaq, when you go to foul someone and you try to make sure they're not making a shot, it's a balance between fouling someone hard and hurting them, or taking them out. And so you kind of find that balance when you're attempting to foul people and not have them score. But when you go against a guy like a Shaq that's so powerful, you got to take I got to ease up because I don't want to hurt him or what have you. That part has to go out of the equation because he's so physically strong. And so you see the intent of guys when you foul a guy like a Shaq or LeBron. It's different than anyone else because the strength and physicality that this person is coming with. So, those guys they tend to get fouled harder than the normal player.
Yeah, and I mean it's so hard to be in the front court nowadays, Walt. I mean it's not an easy world to live in. And listen, with you playing the way that you played it and what you did in your career, I mean you ended your career shooting almost 43% from the field and from 3-point just shy of 40%. You knew how to get the job done, and you were an all-around player, and a player before your time in that respect. When we look at what guys are being asked to do right now, is it weird for you to see like, oh, this guy's 7'7" and he's banging threes and dribbling the ball down the court? I mean, today's NBA, everybody's got to be able to shoot a three. Everybody's got to be able to get out there, and we've seen the kind of sad death of the inside presence and the death of the center and the death and again, to play to your physicality side of things. How do you feel about the fact that big men are dribbling the ball and big men are taking deep shots, but the big man inside banging bodies, getting after it and getting 2 offensive rebounds and putting that ball back up isn't really happening anymore?
Well, yeah, I think that, when you expand the game like that, I mean, you see those guys, they are very talented. So it's just where the game is headed. But I think you can't lose the aspect of the closer you are to the basket, the easier it is to make the shot. That's just the fundamentals, period. And so, it is a shame to see that part of the game go, especially when you see in transition, guys have opportunities to make easy layups and dunks, but they fan out to the 3-point line. That's the part that it's hard to watch. But, just the skill set of these guys, it's next level. And like I said, when you take away the aspect of the physicality of it all, you get to see this on a grander stage. And so I think it makes for a more exciting game because you put up more numbers. These guys are putting up 100 points per game, and I'm an offensive guy, so I like to see the offensive part of it. I like to see the beauty of the skill set of the game, and so it's not perfect, but I would lean towards that as opposed to more physical on the defensive end where, you get the 70, 80-point games. I know it's a more difficult environment to play in, just like the one I played in was easier than my predecessors, the guys that came before me. It was harder for them, and that it was more physical for them in the league. So that's what happens. It gets a little less physical. It gets a little bit more entertaining, and that's how the game adapts.
And if you were to play in today's basketball world of the NBA, how would you fit in? How would you see that?
Oh man, it would be. I mean, my family would probably be in a different situation. You see these guys that get 4-year contracts, or huge contracts, and then you look at the numbers they're putting up, and it's just a little puzzling. I think the game has changed in many ways. I think that another way that's changed is the potential of a guy is measured at a higher rate than it was in the past. I think that it was about what you have done in order to get dollars for the future, and now I think it's what could you do, and then that's how you get paid nowadays. So I just think that the way I played the game, and I was a 6'8" point guard coming out of college. So being able to score, being able to handle the ball and create my own, having floor vision like a point guard, with the floor spaced the way it is. I mean, I just think that, I just think that I would do very, very well in the game today.
Yeah, you brought up a perfect point. Well, speaking here with the Wizard here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, I look at contracts now and I'm like, some people don't even know this guy's in the NBA and he's making like this amount of money, and with, bird rights and this exception and this, that, and the max deal and whatnot. So that brings me to Kyrie Irving. $36.5 million. He has the player option. He says, you know what? I'm going to take it with the Nets. And if I was Kyrie Irving, I would do the same thing. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I don't think the Nets want Kyrie Irving, and I don't think Kyrie Irving's market is high, but he has the player option. So why not take that player option and stay there for $36.5 million? I totally get that. But what are your thoughts on the Kyrie Irving factor? And just, who he is in today's NBA world, not who he was yesterday, but who he is right now. Is Kyrie Irving a way to try and win a championship, or is Kyrie Irving what is standing in front of Kevin Durant?
I think at the end of the day, I think that Kyrie, he's a person who's committed to his convictions, and that's not common in our society, so he's a bit of an outlier in that respect. I think basketball is when you're talking about winning at that high level, it's about chemistry, and trying to reach that consistency. And so I think Kyrie's scenario, where he was when he was at part-time, it was part-time, I think that could have possibly hurt the chemistry there. And I think you could see it when it came playoff time. When you're talking about playoffs, it takes more than the individual talent. It's about how it all gels together, But having said that, I think that Kyrie looked at it all as things are bigger than basketball at times, and some of these athletes they come into the game and they've done it all their life, and they believe that that's what they do. Play basketball, and then some think that they can come in there and do anything, and basketball is one of those things, So if your mindset is along those lines, I think that and then you feel like, oh, I can make a difference in this world, or things along those lines, then you do it. And I think Kyrie is one of those people. And when you look at it, I think that most people, from birth to death, they exist in this world, and then others grab the world by the kahunas and they live and they do and they go with their ambitions. And I just think Kyrie is one of those people. And so that's how I see it all. So I don't know if you go, oh, he's the reason why we'll lose, or we're the reason why we win. I know he's a great talent, and I think that when you put people around him that he respects and that he can see that the light, I think that you can win basketball games with him. But he also has shown that there can be other things that has his attention. And so I think it's just a matter of that, just the balance of it all, and more importantly, he has to play, be consistent in the games that he plays, and so it can't be off and on, and that environment has been corrected, so you won't have to deal with that scenario again. So, I mean, it remains to be seen. I just know when I see him play, it's a great talent, and I think it's about how does the team fit with that talent. And if it does, I think you can do great things, especially when you got a guy like KD. I mean, he's arguably the best player in the game today. So, I mean, and so I think it's about building that chemistry. And you have, if you have these two guys right here, you have a great nucleus to build around.
That coming from Walt the Wizard Williams here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studio. Speaking on Kyrie Irving, here's my question for you, LeBron James-wise. If you're LeBron James, do you keep Russell Westbrook? Do you get rid of Russell, bring in Kyrie, or do you do neither? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that Westbrook and LeBron, I don't think they fit together. I think their games are similar. I think LeBron, the best part of his game, especially at this part of his career, is to have the ball in his hand, making decisions, and sometimes off the ball. I think Westbrook, at this point in his career as well, he needs the ball in his hands to be at his best. So when they're playing together, one of them have to be off the ball, and when you do that, you're putting that particular person in not his best position. And so I just don't think those two, the way they play the game, I don't think they fit together well. So I think you need to make moves in order to try to get players that will fit what LeBron can do. Kyrie is one of those players. He's shown in the past that he can play off the ball and he can play with the ball in his hand. He can be just as effective either way. And I think that type of player is a player that fits with a guy like LeBron, who can be a point guard at times, but also be a guy who takes over the game and just needs guys to be able to spot shoot around him. So I think Kyrie answers both of those, or checks off both of those boxes. So yeah, he is a guy that I look at that would be a good fit with LeBron as well as others.
And in LeBron's world, Walt, I mean, do you like it when you were playing? I mean, the league was good, right? I mean, there's so many good, strong teams, and there was a time where we're talking about the Sonics, and we're talking about the Spurs, and we're talking about the Bulls, obviously, and the Celtics, and the Kings have had their positive moments, obviously, and in your time there with them and Chris Webber and what he's done. There was so many good teams, the Pacers, the Knicks at the time, that the Mavericks, there was so many moments in the NBA where you look across the league and say, okay, because we have that Jordan LeBron conversation all the time. Jordan didn't buy anybody. He played against them. He played against Detroit. He played against the Spurs. He didn't buy Shaquille O'Neal. He didn't buy David Robinson. He didn't go out there and say, give me Stockton and Malone from the Jazz. He played against them. LeBron will pick his city and then decide who's playing with him. Do you like that model? I mean, it seems like it obviously is not working right now with Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis, but what's your take on the fact that LeBron-Jordan conversation, I think, is a clear one for me on who the greatest ever is? I respect LeBron, but I don't even think it's close because Jordan played against the best and LeBron tries to buy and put together the best. How do you see it? Do you see it similarly? Do you think I'm way off base and LeBron is, not doing anything out of the ordinary? I mean, how do you view this? Because it's hard for me to say LeBron is the best when Jordan never tried to buy anybody and put him in his backyard.
When you compare those two, LeBron against Jordan, I'm a Jordan guy too. I lean towards Jordan. I think that his dominance in his era it's different than what LeBron has done. You look at LeBron's era going to 9 championships. That's incredible. But you also have a Golden State team that's won 4 championships during his time frame. And so, that's arguably a dynasty going on from another team that LeBron is not a part of. So I just think that's a conversation to be had. Having said that, when you come with the argument of how good LeBron is compared to Jordan, I just think that it's a legitimate argument. I can't, the back and forth with that, to me, it's just a preference. It's legitimate, the argument on both sides of who's the best. So I think it's both legitimate, but I lean towards Jordan. I think that when you talk about the free agency, I like that the players can control their own fate a bit more. I like that. But I do not like, super teams and, things like that. I think that when you do that, I like to see the competition spread out more. Because I think that you get a truer judge of the pecking order when you get to the upper echelon of players, and being able to have them battle against each other rather than be on the same team. So when you're talking about LeBron playing with other great players or bringing them all together, and then he has to go against a team like a Golden State Warriors that has, their teams, their amount of superstars or all-stars or Hall of Fame players. It's just a different environment, period. And so I think it's comparable when you look at the environment that you're playing in. And so, but I just think that Jordan, when situations arise, I just think that he's more consistent in how he rides above it and figures out a way to get it done. I just thought he was better in that aspect. So it's just a little small thing that I feel is the separator of those two.
And Walt, you and I talked about, and before I let you go here, we spoke about a little bit earlier the ballooning of these contracts, right? And how much money these guys are getting. Also on this is the fact that contracts really don't mean anything. If a guy goes to a team, signs a 5-year, 6-year deal, 4-year deal, and decides, I don't want to be here anymore, they hold the team hostage now. KD, if he wants to be moved, he has 4 years left on his contract, and the Nets owe him almost $43 million this year, over $46 next season, almost $50 in 24-25, and $53.2 million in 25-26. He's going to make a lot of money no matter what, but how do you view the KD factor? I think that, Boston, Dallas, Phoenix makes sense for him to go. I think Phoenix and Dallas definitely become title contenders if he were to go there, and I think Boston, it's a no-brainer depending on what they give up. But how do you view the contract world nowadays where a guy can sign a deal and then with 4 years left on it go, I don't really want to be here anymore? And what are your thoughts on KD? Do you want to see him stay? Do you want to see him leave? How do you see it?
A few things. I think that nothing has changed in terms of, hey, if you sign this contract, then it's what it is. I think that because players the difference is I think players understand that they can be more vocal about things and possibly have something happen from that. But at the end of the day, the team is in control. It's a contract. It's a guaranteed contract. So I think that, even if KD wants to leave, if he's still there in New Jersey, in Brooklyn, then you're going to play, and you're going to play at your best ability. It's certainly been players who have to play a contract out, and that's what they do. I think the only difference now is that you can be more vocal about how you feel, and the players are more vocal about that. And so, but I think that when it's all said and done, you talk about Phoenix or Miami or if I'm the Nets, if I can't get one of your bona fide all-star players from your team, if you want to keep your team intact and bring KD in, who do you have left to give me or trade to me where it's a benefit to the Nets? I just don't see the others on the Phoenix Suns or Miami being adequate enough for a KD trade. So I don't know. I think that when you trade a guy like KD, if you're traded to one of those upper echelon teams, you're going to lose significantly in what you receive back, and you're going to have to hope that your draft picks in the future or things like that you hit on that can make up for it. But I just don't see the better teams having enough. And so I see KD and Kyrie staying in Brooklyn and figuring it out, and that team, you look at a year ago, they were right there. KD's toenail was on the line, and then you go through this season where it was up and down. And you got to think that we can figure this out as a Nets organization to go, let's give it another try. Things were out of our control, and it was a unique situation that's not going to be here again. So, dismissing that part of the equation, we are a championship caliber team. And so, I think that that's something that you can talk through because at the end of the day, I think Kyrie and KD, they want to be able to win championships, and they want to be in the best position where they can do that. And they are in a situation where this Nets team is possibly a championship caliber team.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is contingent on a healthy Ben Simmons, a focused Ben Simmons, and a Ben Simmons that can be consistent in this thing. Walt, Steph Curry, the Reggie Miller world, and like I said about you, you left the league averaging almost 40% from deep and over 40% from the field. When you watch Steph Curry, is there any better shooter in the history of the NBA? Is it between him and Reggie Miller? Where is it? Is it clearly him? I grew up on Reggie Miller, so it's hard for me to, say like beyond a doubt. But at the same time, Steph Curry can shoot from anywhere, and there's a good chance that it's going to go in, and he has a lot of confidence in that shot when he lets go of it. You'll look at him, he's almost at half court, and it looks like he's shooting a free throw. So, how do you gauge Steph Curry to Reggie Miller? And is there a contest, or is it clearly Steph Curry?
Yeah, I think that, Reggie Miller, Ray Allen, Larry Bird, you can shake them up in a bag, and whoever you pick up out of there, I'm cool with whoever. But Steph is standing at the top of that, looking at these guys fight for second, no question. He's easily the best shooter we've ever seen because of what he can do spot up as well as off the dribble. I think that it's comparable when you talk about catch and shoot. You look at a Clay, he's right there. Larry, Reggie Miller, but when you add the element of off the dribble to shooting it from that 3-point line, I think that's where he clearly separates himself. And when you talk about those guys, and for me, I think that although, like I said earlier, I think the environment of the game has moved to outside in, and then Steph comes into this environment and expands it and takes it beyond the normal 3-point line. And so when he leaves the game, it's a question to me whether that continues, because you see these kids that mimic that, but they do not shoot at the rate that he does from that distance. And so when you take him out of the equation, and now you're seeing these other guys shoot it from that deep, and it's not going in as much as you're used to seeing it when Steph is there, now do you continue to say, that's a good shot? And so I'm interested to see when Steph leaves the game, does the game continue to stay the same way in terms of how deep guys consistently shoot the ball?
Yeah, and that's a great point to bring up. Will the game change when Steph isn't there is definitely a huge thing to say, and I appreciate that very much. 2 final points here. I said we would speak on free agency with Walt the Wizard Williams here, and we'll do that as we are here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Cubal studios. Andre Iguodala is like 115 years old, right, Walt? And he's still playing. He's got 42 championships. This man has been, I feel like I was hearing about Iguodala when Iverson was playing, but it's he's been around forever, and I respect it. But we look at the free agents that are out there right now, right? LaMarcus Aldridge, Paul Millsap, Rajon Rondo, Lou Williams is out there, DJ Augustine, as well as Danilo Gallinari, Blake Griffin. Some of these names out here, James Harden, as well, Eric Bledsoe, DeMarcus Cousins. Is there anybody that really stands out to you in free agency right now that you could be an immediate impact? And I know the Lakers obviously have to figure out a way to reload. So is there anybody that makes sense to you in free agency that could give that immediate spark to a team that's trying to either get into the playoffs or to make it farther?
Well, I think, the players who give that immediate spark are going back to their respective teams. You talk about guys like James Harden. I think he's going back to the Sixers. I think that, you make salary cap room for him to be able to add others to the equation so that you can go to the next level. But I think with him going back to Philly and having the whole off season to be able to train and get in shape and not going through an off season of rehabbing, I think that'll make a world of difference for that team, especially with a guy like Embiid, who's probably the most dominant big man in the league right now. And so, but I think all those guys you mentioned, I don't think any of them will have this huge impact, but I think they all can be pieces to the puzzle. And I think they all will have, these are not guys you named, are not guys who just bring impact from their presence on the basketball court. I think all of these guys have been in the wars, have experience at the next level in the playoffs, and so they're going to be able to add more than just the value of playing the game, but their experience and knowledge and anticipation of what's going to happen or how you're supposed to react in certain situations, and giving that experience to the team, and that leads to confidence in certain scenarios. Even though you haven't been in it before, I have a guy who I can lean on that has to give me that confidence or let me know that I can get this done. So that's important when you have that mix of, especially with the environment of the league, that so many young guys that are impactful physically playing in the game, but mentally you need that approach to be able to get over the hump when physically that's not the answer.
Yeah, and I think, I think taking a look at this right now, like you said, I mean, a lot of the guys are going to be staying put. It's not a giant world of free agency, but one of the names that's in there, and, my hometown being Syracuse, New York, Walt, I would love to get your thoughts on Carmelo Anthony and his longevity in the NBA and just what you think he's meant to the NBA. He's 38 years old right now, and he's been around the block, Denver Nuggets, the Knicks. He's been, here and there. He's been with the Lakers most recently. What are your thoughts on Carmelo Anthony, and what do you think he brought to the game?
You know what? I think him and Iguodala are similar in this respect. Iguodala was on his way to being a star in this league when he played for Philly. And then a couple of trades happened, and then all of a sudden he was in a role position. And it seemed like he embraced that right away. And then you see his career have that success story. I think Carmelo is similar. It wasn't as early in his career, but I think that people counted Carmelo out, thinking that not only he wasn't as good as he was before, but mentally he was not going to be able to adapt to not being as good as he was before, and the team, how the teams would use him in that scenario. But he embraced being a part of the team and relished in those moments. It was times where, he was a go-to guy on the floor, being one of the others. And I think that he was able to play well in his role, and sometimes even had flashbacks of what he used to be, because he mentally embraced his role. And I think that you have to commend him, because he's absolutely had a Hall of Fame career. And when guys get to the tail end, sometimes they still believe that, hey, I should be the focal point, and they don't adapt to fall into the role of, maybe somebody else is somebody else's team, and I gotta be a compliment to them. It's hard to make that transition, especially when you're a Hall of Fame player. And so I think that Carmelo should be commended because he has made that transition, and not only has he done that, he's become a much better spot shooter because he knows he's not going to have those many moments of being able to have ISO moments. So he has adapted his game, and you can tell that he's been working on becoming a better player off the ball and complementing the focal point of the team.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate that. And Walt, again, bringing up another great point here this morning, many of them, and I deeply always appreciate our opportunities to speak with each other. And you saying, when people don't know, okay, you know what, my role has changed and they don't know how to compliment, and maybe this is, somebody else leading the team and this is what I need to do. I think Al Horford had done a great job of that we saw with Boston, that his longevity in the league, what Horford has done on a Jason Tatum team, and a Jaylen Brown. So there's a lot to be said about that. And, I appreciate the respect to Carmelo Anthony, who won the only championship for Syracuse ever, 2003, in the NCAA tournament, and did that with Jerry McNamara, Hakeem Warwick, Queth Duaney, and company. So, and Josh Pace and whatnot. So, Walt, I thank you. You gave us a lot of insight on a lot of different areas. You even jumped into the realignment conversation, and you talked about Notre Dame. So I appreciate that so very much. I'm going to let you, there's something on my show I do called Rapid Fire, and I want to let you do this since you've been great about answering my questions. I'm going to take you off the hot seat. I'm going to put me on it. And you can ask me any 3 things in the world, Walt, and I have to answer them. And we're live, so whenever you're ready, go ahead.
All right, I always wanted to know this. Analysts, right?
Yeah.
So did you play basketball? Did you play any sports?
I did. I played basketball from like seven years old on.
All right. So it seems to me that analysts, they are so upset that, athletes make the amount of money that they do.
Yeah.
And, it seems like you guys have some animosity towards that. And it feels like, man, you couldn't make it. And so when somebody else does, it just comes off as just like, wow, you guys are haters, man. Why is that?
Well, I can tell you, Walt, if you haven't figured this out yourself already, I am not your traditional media person, and I don't act like them. So they probably don't like me as much as they don't like you. And so I'm going to be real with you on this. If you can go get your money, go out and get it. Do I think the contracts are insane? Do I think they're ballooned? Yeah. I mean, sometimes I take a look back and go, what in the heck? But do I ever want to take money out of somebody's, hands? No, not at all. And am I bitter in any way, shape, or form? No, man. I'm proud that I got to play the game. I'm 36 years old. I still play pickup ball. I still put myself out there on a court. It's still a place of peace and will always be a place of peace for me. I hope to play with my kids someday. So I can answer your question by saying I think a lot of people in the media are ornery and angry and mad at somebody, and I don't know who it is. But more often than not, I think it's a bunch of people that were bullied in school that are now bullying other people.
Because, listen, I can tell you this. If it was easy, everybody would do it. It is such hard work, and it's such sacrifice. And, at the end of the day, somebody is paying that salary, so somebody's making a heck of a lot more than we are. And then, you have to go through what you have to go through in order to perform at that high level. So I just always wanted to know that. Number 2, why do you think that people only want athletes to talk about their profession and not, have be able to broaden their horizons and talk about other things that affect their lives and their communities? And so why do you think a lot want these athletes to just strictly talk about their profession?
Again, not how I view it. I mean, I think if you're passionate about, listen, as a broadcaster, people know the tagline for Wake Up Call and everything I've ever done with sports is where sports meets life. What I mean by that is I use sports as a vehicle to spread community, equality, humility, faith, comedy, joy, positivity. I mean, there's a world that I live in that I use sports to bring the more important stuff into people's lives. I can't sit here as a broadcaster and not talk about inequality, and I haven't, and people can go check the tape on that. I don't keep my mouth shut if women are treated unfairly. I don't keep my mouth shut if somebody of a color is treated unfairly. I don't keep my mouth shut on the fact that, I've been discriminated against for being Italian and Hispanic, and people don't think that happens because, Italians have been around forever and a day, but there's some really nasty things that people say, and there's N-words in Italian that, America has adopted 3 of them, and they feel very comfortable sharing them. So, I think you should speak about the things that matter to you, the things that touch your heart. And, I think if you're an athlete and you're out there and you say, hey, I really don't appreciate, this that I saw in society, or I don't like the fact that I got, pulled over by a cop every week of my life when I was 16 years old. There's a lot to me to be said about the fact that things need to change. And I think that the America we live in today, I think the powers that be want us to be divided and stay divided. They want us to question each other. They want us to not like a different color, a different language, a different background, different money. And I think we are compelled right now as America and as the world to rise above that, to read between the lines of a lot of media that's out there, and to stop treating people differently because everybody wants to group everybody. So I would tell you that I think that athletes should speak their mind respectively. Respectfully. I don't think that you need to swear. I don't think you need to yell. I think peace is always the answer. And, I think there's a way to go about it with proper etiquette and doing your homework. And, and I said this, about Colin Kaepernick. The national anthem to me holds a lot of weight because I love this country and I love what my grandfathers and my great uncles and my great aunts and my grandmothers did in World War II and beyond. So he said it was never about the flag and it was never about the national anthem, but he chose to do it then. And when I spoke to Floyd Little about it, he's like, I wish he would have done it at a different time. So I've always said when it comes to Colin Kaepernick, if you want to peacefully have a real conversation about the real problems that are going on in this world, I'll hold your hand and we can go talk somewhere about it, because there is inequality. There is things that are wrong. There's just this weird world of misunderstanding and miscommunication, and a lot of people following whatever the media says right off a cliff. So I think a lot of people are mad, Walt, but I don't think they know why. And I think we need to really break down the fact that people have been fighting forever, but they really don't even know why they're fighting anymore. And I think that to get back to your point, should an athlete speak their mind about God, about faith, about equality, about things that matter to them? Absolutely. And I think people are blackballed in Hollywood when they talk about God, and that's unfair. So, I think anybody should be able to speak their mind respectfully about the things that matter to them. And we should be able to have conversations with people that we don't agree with, where we can both learn something, move forward together, because in the grand scheme of things, not everybody is 100% right 100% of the time. And I think we need to stop acting that way.
Absolutely. You know what? More so than my day, I think these players of today, they are more mindful of that they're more than just professional athletes, and that they impact people's lives. And so I think that they understand that part of it, and then they act accordingly, and that goes beyond their profession. So I think it's a realization of them having the knowledge of, when I speak about this issue, I'm trying to make a positive impact on a person's life, and they can do that, and so they do. So it's refreshing to see these women and men just really voice their opinion on certain subjects, for sure. And then my last question would be, you asked me this question earlier. So do you like the way the game is played now? So like I was explaining, the game is, most of the time when you're seeing these games, they're in the hundreds.
Yeah.
But they were in the 80s, 90s, 70s, because of the physicality of defense. So do you like the environment and the way the game is played now as opposed to the way it was played in the day?
No. So I you know what? and it doesn't matter if I have a dog in the race or not. I could be watching Duke, North Carolina, I could be watching Syracuse, Georgetown, I could be watching, USC, UCLA, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me at all. I could be watching Maryland, Rutgers. I can't stand the ridiculousness of the foul calling, the amount of times that play is stopped, the fact that, if you're a big man, and I talked to Jesse Edwards at Syracuse about this last season, I said, do you get frustrated because there's really nothing you can do? Like, if you try to block a shot, if you try to be physical, if you try to get in front of somebody, it's a foul. The game has been made, and it's been remade, I should say, into we want everybody to score. There was a day when the Dallas Mavericks with Jason Kidd were averaging 100 points a game, and there was one other team in the NBA that was doing that. And it was unheard of. It was 2 out of 30 teams had 100 points a game. And now it's if you don't score 100 points, the game's boring to people. And I miss the 98 to 72. I miss the 72 to 63. I miss the 80 to 75. I miss the Walt Williams days. I miss the days where you had to play defense. I miss the days where defense was actually a thing. Steph Curry's a fantastic shooter. He doesn't play defense. LeBron James could play a lot of defense. That man don't play defense unless he feels like playing defense, and usually it's just because he wants the ball that somebody didn't pass to him. So, nobody play. We don't see defense anymore. I would challenge the most avid NBA fan to name 5 defenders for me that are really good right now. And I feel like they go Marcus Smart, and then they probably sit there and have to figure out where else do I go? Who's playing defense in Philadelphia? I don't know. Who's playing defense in Brooklyn? Nobody. It's not. Oklahoma City for a time, they were fundamental. Chicago was like that in recent history. The Spurs, obviously. But nobody plays defense anymore. And then when you do try to play defense, you get slapped on the wrist for it and put in timeout. You can't play recess with everybody. So I'm over this ticky-tack, dainty, Otis Hill said it best about Syracuse. He said, when we played Georgetown, we played football games on the basketball court. And I miss that. I miss on Maryland and, those Maryland, those Duke games where you can go out there and you could get physical, right? John Wallace told me all the time, the refs would let them do that. If Patrick Ewing did something to Pearl, then Gene Waldron could go after Patrick Ewing and even out the score, and then the ref would look at you and say, "Okay, y'all are good. Let's move on." We don't have that anymore, and seriously, and I'll say it all the time. If you follow, and I know we follow each other on Twitter, watch how I talk in a game. I'll tell you, that man's fingernail barely grazed the third hair on the front of the forehead of that center, and that was called a foul. Point guards go to line all the time, and flopping is still something that's real now. And if you flopped when I played basketball growing, I'm 5'8". I make it to the NBA. You did. If you played basketball with me growing up and you were playing anywhere on any court and I fell over, people would laugh at you, look at you on the ground, and go to the basket and by themselves, have that layup and go, "You're a chump." I don't you open up a can of worms, Walt, this is your fault. But I do not like today's college basketball and NBA's ticky-tack BS. "Oh no, mommy, he hurt my fingernail," "Oh, he touched my elbow." Shut up and play. Stop. Let's get physical again. Let's play basketball again. Let's play defense again. And, if you can name 5 teams in the NBA that actually play defense as a team, I don't know, somebody should give you $1 million for, the effort of barely finding 5. So yes, it needs to change. No, I don't like it. And yes, I respected the game way more when you guys were playing because you actually had to fight for something. Where now, if I go to reach for that ball, somebody's going to cry to mommy that there's a boo-boo, and I'm probably going to get ejected in that game.
Well, hey, look, I remember my first NBA game. We played against the Spurs in our first regular season game, and I remember we were running a UCLA play where I was handling the ball up top, hit the wing guy, and then cut down the middle of the lane and go out the opposite side. Well, I threw it to the wing, and when I cut down the lane, I was just, standing straight up and just jogging through the lane to get to the other side. I didn't realize that when you're off the ball, guys were just hitting you. And I had so many elbows to the rib cage running through that lane. It was unreal. So from that point on, it was like when you ran through that lane, you covered yourself like you were a running back running through tackling drills or something, when you went through that lane, because it was just so physical, And so, I certainly remember those days and the physicality of it all, and not just on the ball but off the ball as well. It was just, a total different game for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a different one. I mean, I remember playing a high school game, and I went under the basket. I was like half the size of this center. I went underneath the basket as a guard, and he checked me in my private area. And I remember looking up at him going, "Bro, you got like over a foot on me. You don't need to be touching me here." You know what I mean? Like, I got to anticipate your jump just to try and be a monkey on your shoulders. Like, can we not come after me? Like, bro, you got it. Like, you're 6 foot. I'm 5 foot, whatever I was at the time, 5'5". Like, don't be going after my private parts. Like, play your game and do you. So, I mean, yeah, back in the day is a different world. I mean, I remember when Ron Artest was pulling people's pants down, and I was like, Ron, you okay? But, I mean, it's just, well, I mean, listen.
Hey, I tell you what, I grew up in an environment where it always started out. We're going to play basketball, and, we pass and shoot and dribble and all these things. But if that wasn't working, now we're going to try something different. We're going to test the heart, test the physicality. We're going to test other things out here that maybe not that might not be basketball related. So absolutely, it was a testament to your will and your heart, and not just your skill set out there in the basketball environment, for sure.
I've never played a game where somebody didn't try to touch me, hit me, push me. Like, I mean, that's life, man. One of the greatest moments was after a game where I was dribbling the ball out with 20 seconds left, and this kid just kept, like, hitting and punching and elbowing, and I'm looking at the ref like, are you kidding me? And I picked the ball up for, like, the last few seconds, and he's hitting me, and he's getting really upset, and he's trying to rip at it, and at the end of the game, I was walking away from him, and I go, you know what? No. I said, what he did was disrespectful. I took the ball, and I said, hey, I think you were looking for this, and I shoved it into his chest after the game ended. Like, I like those moments, you know what I mean? Like, that, give me that basketball again, So, yes, Walt, we need to have it back because, I tell you, your nickname's the Wizard, and there's some phantom fouls out there these days, so we need to fix the game up. We need to get it right. And Walt, I love that I met you at the ACC buffet, and I look forward to talking with you again soon because it's always a pleasure.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much.
All right, be good and take care of yourself. And my best to the family and my best to your son at Miami of Ohio.
Thank you.
All right, talk to you soon. That coming from Walt Williams here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Man, I could talk to the Wizard all day. That was a lot of fun. So, to have a guy whose cards I collected growing up, just, I mean, and that, it's Walt, it's Muggsy Bogues, it's Patrick Ewing, it's crazy. I'm very grateful for the life I get to live, and I'm very thankful to God for letting me live this life because I'm 36 years old, I'm young, I just got started, I feel like, and will be 19 years in November. My company turns 10 this month in July, and, speaking of Walt Williams, are you kidding me? and getting to have, my father figure Papa Joe on the show to talk about these things, and, to have these conversations that just flow so easily that you don't even see like an hour's gone. So I feel extremely blessed. I feel speechless to it, and I love it. So I'll try and find the words. We'll take a step aside for a fast break, and we'll be back to wrap up this edition of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios right after this. Make sure you go to Witty Wicks and get your awesome candles. Windows wide open, baby. Smells beautiful. So when I'm having these heated conversations, I got a little heat coming off of my candle as well. We'll be back right after this. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville beats. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand butter chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant is different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career, it's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cubal needs. Cafe Cubal, coffee for the soul.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond. You can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
Witty Wicks Candles and Gift Shop, Township 5 Camillus, where you will find handcrafted all-natural soy wax candles over 60 cents to freshen up your home. We carry a wide range of locally made items, salsa cues, Syracuse salt, and chocolate pizza company, to name a few. Let our knowledgeable staff help choose unique gifts and keepsakes for any occasion. Gifts for family and friends, and maybe a little something for yourself. Witty Wicks Candles and Gift Shop, Township 5 Camillus.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Cubal studios, hanging out with you where sports meets that thing called life, and appreciate you being here with us where sports meets life inside of these Cafe Cubal studios. Cafe Cubal here with you on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, New York. You can also find them on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, in their giant behemoth of a brown striped building. And of course, you can find them on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse at their drive-through location. And for those of you out of town, go to cafecubal.com and support them today. Thank you for tuning in every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, where sports meets that thing called life. Under promise, over deliver. We like hanging out with you for a long time here. YouTube.com, Facebook.com, and MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT. This is how I treat it, right? When you're friends, you sit down for a while, right? You don't put a time limit on it. So we say we're done at 11, and very rarely are we ever done at 11. So happy to be here with you. Happy to hang out with you. YouTube.com, Facebook.com, and MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT. And, of course, on WakeUpCallDT.com, as well as on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT. You'll see us in that feed as well. Once the shows go live, you can search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, MixLR, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube, iHeartRadio, Podbean, TuneIn, Amazon Music, Audible, and more. You can also ask your Alexa device and your Google devices to play the latest episode of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and they'll do that for you as well. On any one of these outlets, just simply search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. And I appreciate everybody that has done that. And once you're there, make sure to like us, follow us, stay in touch with us, because we appreciate that so very much, and it is free to do so. With that being said, Central and Upstate New York and beyond, I want to thank all of our fantastic partners in the community, Cafe Cubal, Carvel DeWitt, as well as the Wildcat Sports Pub, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, PB&J's Lunchbox, Avicoli's Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Pizza Man, Honda City of Liverpool, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Witty Wicks, Mother's Cupboard, and Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora as the proud multimedia marketing partner exclusively of your... Lemoyne College Dolphins. It is Fins Up every month here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life, and appreciate being with Lemoyne, being their exclusive multimedia marketing partner, and always have a great time with them in this community. So much love to all of them, and want to let you know here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora that every single month you can tune in on Wednesdays to Dolphin Time and get to hear from your Lemoyne College Dolphins, with AD and DT episodes airing Wednesdays at 9 a.m. every first and third Wednesday of each month. And every second and fourth Wednesday, you get to hear Dolphin Dive and get to watch Dolphin Dive as well. Dolphin Dive, where we dive into the stories of student athletes, coaches, as well as administration, alumni, and future Dolphins. You can get the library of our content with the Dolphins, with our Dolphin Dive and AD and DT specials, by going to the Lemoyne tab of wakeupcalldt.com. You can also subscribe to our channel on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt and get everything there. So make sure that you do that today, and we appreciate everyone who has done that. We thank you so much. Make sure you go to LemoyneDolphins.com for more information. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is also the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Marywood University Pacers. It is Pacer Pride every single month here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life, and we appreciate them so very much. The Pacers are here with us on Fridays, where we have the opportunity to bring you new editions of Pacer Pride with administration, student athletes, and coaches. You can get our entire library of that by going to the Marywood tab on wakeupcalldt.com, as well as subscribing to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. And for more information on your Pacers, go to marywoodpacers.com. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Bryant and Stratton College Bobcats. The Bobcats are with us in Bobcat Buzz every single month here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where we get to share stories from administration, student athletes, and coaches. We've spoken with national champions, and we've had the opportunity to speak with programs that are just starting and give you the exclusive when it comes to Danny Frisina stepping away. We did that at PB&J's Lunchbox on 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York, after the man who created the men's basketball program has finished up his time there. We got to do the exclusive with Clay Gagan-Sherman taking over the men's basketball program when we were on site at Mother's Cupboard on 3709 James Street in Syracuse, New York. And we got to be with Tay Baker as he was announced on our show as the women's basketball head coach from on campus at Bryant and Stratton College. And we've had Alex Grigorita out to Cafe Kubal on 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse. And we just did a Bobcat takeover where the entire Wake Up Call broadcast was on site, on location at Bryant and Stratton College on James Street, where we featured Nick Dmitrievsky, Alex Grigorita, Tay Baker, Clay Gagan-Sherman, and Sean Peak. We'll have plenty more Bobcat Buzz coming up for you here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora exclusively. You can get all of our Bobcat content by going to our library on the BSC SYR tab on wakeupcalldt.com. Subscribe on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. And of course, for more information on your Bobcats, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life, from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, decked out ever so nicely with all of these wonderful products you can get at Witty Wicks. You have their 315 Home Sweet Home, which I love because I love my home. You have the 315 Pillow, and you have the Cuse Home Sweet Home as well. All of these are made here in our community, as well as the fantastic candles that are made here by Witty Wicks in our community and been made here for a very, very long time. Witty Wicks, who you know them, shout out to Aubrey, was making these candles and selling them out of her home going to the farmer's market, and now has their Township 5 location in Camillus, their store that is right in front of Movie Tavern. And of course, you could go to wittywicks.com as well as see them out at a bunch of community events. So shout out to Witty Wicks for helping my studio smell ever so nicely and for decking out our studio with awesome stuff that shows how much I love our community and how much it means to me. Show your love for the community by going out, buying local, supporting local, and getting these local wonderful products here that support the 315 and Syracuse, as well as our Camillus signs and Marcellus and all of that. Head out to Witty Wicks today in Township 5 in Camillus and let them know that Wake Up Call sent you. With that being said, thanks to Cafe Kubal once again. Fill your cup up right with our exclusive studio partner. Thanks to Papa Joe. Thank you to Walt the Wizard Williams, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, who is hiring now for the fair. You can go to Indeed.com and apply there, and we'll be reposting once again. We got great feedback from our job postings for Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, and we'll do that again here this week on our social media, at Wake Up Call DT on Facebook, at Call DT on the Twitter, and at Wake Up Call _DT on Instagram. For now, from the Cafe Kubal Studios, I am Dan Tortora. This is Wake Up Call. You are amazing. And as I always tell you, God bless